They canceled my son's birthday to make my niece feel special, and that's when I decided enough was enough. Maya Donovan had spent months planning her son Ethan's 9th birthday. She didn't want a simple cake and balloons. This was her quiet, brilliant boy who could name every moon of Jupiter and still be invisible to the world. She had transformed the lake house deck into a starlit observatory, rented 3 high-powered telescopes, and set up a portable planetarium inside the great room. Hand-painted cookies modeled after Jupiter's moons sat meticulously on a silver tray. Every detail had been chosen to celebrate Ethan, to make him feel seen, loved, and extraordinary. But at 11:51 p.m., Maya's phone buzzed with a single text that would change everything. "You are no longer welcome at the lake house. Return the keys immediately." It was from her mother, Veronica. For a moment, Maya just stared at the message, the weight of 32 years of silent labor pressing down on her chest. She had spent decades being the fixer, the invisible daughter, the one who cleaned up after everyone else's mess while her sister Bianca, the golden child, basked in praise and attention. Bianca had claimed she needed the lake house for a sponsored influencer shoot. Money, fame, and appearances always mattered more than Ethan's happiness. Maya looked over at Ethan, sleeping in the back seat of the car she had packed earlier that night. There was no sadness in her chest, only clarity. The realization hit her with the cold precision of a scalpel. She had been a laborer in her own family, a vessel for their convenience, and no longer. She quietly moved through the rooms of the lake house, checking every detail she had worked on. The telescopes were carefully boxed, the cookies gently placed in containers, and every piece of equipment Ethan would need for his night sky adventure was ready. The lake house was magnificent, a testament to her dedication, but it belonged to no one who deserved it. Veronica and Bianca arrived moments later, Bianca stepping out of the car with oversized sunglasses and an iced coffee, scrolling through her phone like she was inspecting a world she already owned. Maya took a deep breath. Bianca's voice cut sharply through the night air. "Why is there a tent in the living room?" she demanded. "It's a planetarium, Bianca, for Ethan's birthday," Maya said calmly. Bianca laughed, cruel, sharp, and dismissive. "This isn't going to work. I need the lake house. My brand launch depends on it." Veronica tried her usual soothing tone. "Maya, be reasonable. Bianca has a contract. This is important." Maya's voice dropped into a level calm that carried years of restrained anger. "I spent $5,000 on this weekend, 4 months of planning, 10 kids are coming, an astronomer is driving in. The house is already booked. You cannot have it." Bianca smirked. "My contract is worth $20,000. Do the math." Maya felt the familiar burn of injustice, decades of being ignored, dismissed, and undervalued. But this time, instead of pleading, she acted. She contacted a moving company she had used for her event planning and arranged for her equipment and property to be moved immediately. If they wanted to treat her as disposable, she would leave, taking her labor, her property, and her dignity with her. By midnight, the lake house was quiet again, the observatory packed in trucks, and Ethan awake with a wide grin, completely oblivious to the family drama. Maya looked back once at the empty house, feeling neither sorrow nor regret, only freedom. That night, she whispered to Ethan, "Tonight, we go on a secret mission, just you and me." As they drove away, Maya felt the first real taste of power she had ever known, control over her life, her son's happiness, and the future she would build. The golden child, the enabler, the family system that had drained her for years, all left behind in her rearview mirror. I realized I had spent 32 years being the unpaid worker of my family, and tonight, that ends. Maya Donovan had spent her entire life in the shadows of her family. Bianca, her younger sister, was perfection incarnate in Veronica's eyes. Glamorous, untouchable, the daughter who could do no wrong. Maya, on the other hand, had been invisible. She was the fixer, the unpaid laborer who quietly handled every bill, every leak, every disaster while receiving neither praise nor acknowledgement. Every family gathering had been a test of endurance. Clean the house, prepare the food, babysit, and smile while Bianca took the spotlight. Now, standing in the empty apartment she had secured with Ethan, Maya felt a sense of clarity she hadn't known was possible. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. Her labor, her intelligence, and her heart had been stolen, exploited, and dismissed. But she had spent years learning the value of strategy and precision, and now she could finally apply it. The next morning, Bianca and Veronica called repeatedly. Bianca's voice on the phone dripped with indignation. "Maya, this is absurd. You can't just take the house apart. The furniture, the appliances, it's ridiculous." Maya smiled, a small, quiet curve of satisfaction. "Every item you see in that house," she said, "was purchased with my money, maintained with my effort, and managed by me. You want to fight? Let's see how far you get without the fixer." It was the first time Maya spoke aloud the truth that had been simmering inside her for decades. She was not disposable. Her work, her intelligence, and her dedication had been the glue holding the family together, and without her, they were helpless. She began cataloging everything she had taken. The leather sofas Bianca had treated as props for her influencer shoots, the commercial-grade refrigerator, the vintage rugs, the high-powered telescopes, even the heirloom silverware Bianca had coveted for staged photos. Every item came with a receipt, a story, an undeniable proof of ownership. Her mother tried to intervene. "Maya, don't be unreasonable. Bianca needs the lake house. She has contracts to fulfill." Maya's voice was calm, but cutting. "And I have contracts too. With my own life, my own son, my own sanity. You've spent decades making me invisible. Now I'm visible, and I refuse to play the role of the unpaid laborer any longer." For the first time, Veronica faltered. She wasn't used to being confronted, especially not by the daughter she had dismissed for so long. Maya felt the quiet power of truth. She didn't need to yell, to beg, or to cry. She simply held the ledger of her life in her hands, receipts, contracts, and proof, and let it speak for her. Bianca, on the other hand, had no defense. Her golden child status, the armor Veronica had crafted for her, cracked. She had relied on Maya to clean up her mess, manage logistics, and maintain appearances. Now, with Maya removed from the equation, Bianca realized how fragile her world truly was. Maya looked at her son, Ethan, who was happily unpacking the telescope she had carefully packed. He was safe. He was happy, and for the first time, Maya understood that her role as the family scapegoat had been her greatest training ground. Every task she had endured, every slight, every invisible hour spent laboring for someone else had prepared her for this moment. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about liberation. She wasn't just reclaiming her property, she was reclaiming herself. Bianca and Veronica could scream, cry, or threaten lawsuits. It didn't matter. Without Maya to clean up their chaos, their lives were unsustainable, and Maya knew that the system they had built, one dependent on her labor and compliance, would collapse without her. As she finished cataloging her items, Maya whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And with that, she began to plan the next steps, not with anger or impulsiveness, but with meticulous precision. She would no longer be the invisible daughter, the unpaid worker, or the scapegoat. She would be the architect of her own destiny, and the family that had once controlled her would now watch as everything they relied on crumbled without her. If they wanted to treat me like disposable, I would leave. taking everything they thought they owned with me. The next morning, Maya Donovan woke up with a calm that only comes when the long-suppressed power of years of hard labor is finally realized. She had spent decades being the family's invisible engine, paying bills, fixing broken pipes, maintaining the lake house, and cleaning up Bianca's messes, while Bianca strutted through life like a golden child born immune to consequences. Today, however, the tables would turn. Maya had already contacted a professional moving company the night before. They specialize in high-value extractions, corporate assets, delicate antiques, and furniture with irreplaceable significance. They arrived promptly at 7 a.m., trucks idling and crew ready, while Maya moved through the lake house with the precision of a general surveying a battlefield. She had cataloged every piece of property she owned. The Italian leather sofas she had purchased after Bianca had destroyed the old ones by leaving a window open during a storm, the Sonos sound system that powered every family gathering, the vintage rugs she had carefully selected, and the telescopes for Ethan's starry birthday. Even the portable planetarium, which had cost months of planning and thousands of dollars, was carefully boxed. Every item carried her labor, her money, and her undeniable ownership. Bianca and Veronica arrived in their luxury SUVs shortly after sunrise. Bianca stepped out, oversized sunglasses in place, iced coffee in hand, and the signature air of entitlement that had followed her for years. Veronica followed, her face a mask of polite concern, though Maya knew the truth. She was terrified of what was about to happen. "What is all this?" Bianca demanded, her voice sharp and incredulous. "Who are all these people?" "Movers," Maya said evenly. "They're taking everything that belongs to me." Bianca's face twisted. "You can't just take the furniture, the lake house? This is insane!" Maya's voice remained calm, flat, yet edged with the authority she had earned over decades of unpaid labor. "Everything being loaded today is mine, bought with my money, maintained with my effort, and managed by me. You treated me like disposable. You treated my son like disposable. This is the consequence of that choice." Veronica stepped in, trying her usual soothing tones. "Maya, be reasonable. Bianca has contracts. She has obligations." Maya laughed softly, a sound devoid of amusement. "Bianca's contracts relied on me to fix her chaos, to maintain appearances, and to do all the invisible work. Without me, the contracts are meaningless, and I'm done fixing the mess that isn't mine." The movers worked quickly, carefully removing every piece of furniture, appliance, and equipment. Bianca's demands for aesthetic perfection crumbled in real time as she realized that her Instagram-perfect world was being dismantled. The rented photographer's backdrops, carefully curated chairs, and decorative items disappeared one by one. By midday, the lake house was eerily quiet. The great room, once the site of Maya's carefully orchestrated planetarium, was now empty. The decks were bare, and even the kitchen, which Bianca intended to use for her influencer shoot, stood hollow and stark. Maya knelt beside Ethan, who had been quietly watching the extraction. "Don't worry, kiddo," she whispered. "We're going on a secret mission." His eyes widened, excitement replacing the lingering tension of the past year. Maya smiled. For the first time, her son wasn't overshadowed by someone else's ambitions. He was seen. He was important. As they loaded the last of the items into the trucks, Bianca screamed, "You'll regret this! Mom, do something!" Veronica hesitated, caught between the shock of losing control and the habitual need to protect Bianca. But Maya was untouchable now. She had meticulously documented every ownership claim, every purchase, every repair. Legal threats fell on deaf ears. Maya had the leverage. When the final box of telescopes was loaded, Maya looked at the empty lake house, and for the first time, she felt a profound sense of victory. This wasn't just about furniture. This was about reclaiming her life, her labor, and her son's happiness. The fixer, the invisible daughter, the scapegoat, she was gone. As she and Ethan drove away, Maya glanced at the lake house one last time. Its silence wasn't empty, it was heavy with consequence, a tangible reminder that the family system that had thrived on her labor could no longer function. She had removed the foundation, and without it, the structure would crumble. That night, as they settled into their new apartment, Maya whispered to Ethan, "No one can cancel your happiness again. Not ever." And for the first time, Maya felt completely free, ready to build her life on her own terms and to watch the fallout of her absence ripple through the family that had underestimated her for so long. While they whispered about my breakdown, I was quietly building an empire they'd never see coming. Maya Donovan had never felt more alive. The lake house, the golden child, the enabler, all were behind her. She and Ethan had settled into their modest, sunlit apartment 40 miles away, but it wasn't just a place to live. It was a launch pad. She had $5,000 saved for Ethan's birthday party, now reclaimed, and she intended to use it to start something bigger than anyone in her family could imagine. From the exposed brick storefront she had rented downtown, Maya began her meticulous work. She didn't want a generic event planning business. She wanted a niche where her skills, honed over decades of family crisis management, could shine. She registered Stellar Events LLC, marketing herself as a high-stakes event architect and crisis coordinator. Her pitch was simple: flawless events, no chaos, and no one to blame but her. While Bianca and Veronica whispered behind closed doors, claiming Maya had snapped and gone off the rails, Maya built relationships, repaired old vendor connections, and secured new clients. Every single call she made was precise, professional, and confident, the very traits her family had ignored for years. Ethan thrived too. Away from the constant pressure to be invisible, he began to bloom. He joined a local astronomy club, made friends who shared his passion for the stars, and for the first time in his life, he felt valued. At night, they would sit together in their small backyard, telescope aimed at Saturn, and Maya would watch him grin as he shared every detail with the neighborhood kids who gathered around, captivated by his knowledge. Meanwhile, the world Maya had left behind began to unravel. Bianca's influencer empire, once shiny and untouchable, started to crack. Without Maya's logistical support, the secret labor that had kept Bianca's content flawless, photo shoots went wrong, sponsorships faltered, and contracts fell through. The golden child's Instagram-perfect persona became a chaotic display of cancellations, refunds, and public complaints. Veronica's enabler status no longer protected her. Mortgages, loans, and unpaid legal fees began to pile up, all connected to Bianca's failed projects. For years, the family had depended on Maya to absorb the fallout of their ambitions. Without her, the very system they had built to maintain appearances collapsed inward. Back in her apartment, Maya oversaw her first major project, a charity gala for a local foundation. The vendors she had cultivated over years admired her precision and reliability. The event went off without a hitch, and Maya knew this was just the beginning. Stellar Events was no longer a dream. It was a growing reality, a living, breathing proof that success could be built from ashes. She watched Ethan interacting with the children at the gala, explaining the constellations, pointing out Jupiter's moons, and sharing his excitement with anyone who would listen. He was glowing, confident, and, most importantly, happy. Maya realized something profound. The best revenge wasn't causing pain. It was reclaiming what was stolen and building a life so full of joy, accomplishment, and freedom that the toxic people who had tried to control you simply couldn't fit inside it. Months passed. Stellar Events expanded its client base, earning respect in the city's high-profile circles. Maya's name became synonymous with trust, creativity, and meticulous planning. Bianca, desperate to save her brand, reached out through intermediaries, begging for advice and offering bribes. Maya, now fully in control, ignored them all. The golden child had learned that some favors could no longer be bought. One quiet evening, Maya sat with Ethan on their balcony, telescopes ready for the night sky. The city lights below glimmered like distant stars. For the first time, she could breathe deeply without fear or obligation. She had turned the betrayal, the eviction, and the years of being undervalued into the foundation of her empire. And as she watched her son point out Orion's belt with pride, she smiled. The work was hard, the road long, but she had finally escaped the invisible role her family had assigned her. And she knew, without a doubt, the family she left behind was collapsing exactly as it should, quietly, inevitably, and completely without her intervention. Maya's empire wasn't just built on money or property, it was built on liberation, on precision, and on a refusal to be anyone's pawn, ever again.
After 32 years of being invisible, disposable, and undervalued, I finally held all the cards, and I played them perfectly. Maya Donovan sat in the conference room of her now thriving company, Stellar Events LLC, reviewing the final details of her upcoming citywide meteor shower gala. The room was filled with plans, contracts, and glowing screens, a tangible symbol of how far she had come. Outside, the city lights twinkled like the stars she had taught Ethan to recognize, and she felt an unshakable calm. She had not only rebuilt her life, she had mastered it. Meanwhile, back at the lake house, chaos reigned. Bianca's once flawless influencer empire had crumbled without Maya's meticulous planning and labor. Sponsorships had fallen through, high-profile deals collapsed, and creditors were circling. Veronica, the enabler, had tried to prop up her daughter, but the cracks were too deep. Bills, mortgages, and unpaid legal fees loomed like storm clouds over the property. Bianca's Instagram-perfect world had devolved into chaos, a mirror reflecting the reality Maya had always known existed behind the polished exterior. Maya smiled quietly to herself. She didn't need to call, text, or confront them. The destruction was self-inflicted, catalyzed by the absence of the person they relied on most, her. She had spent decades cleaning up their mess, absorbing stress, and fixing disasters, only to be treated like an obstacle. Now, she had removed the scaffolding that held their world upright. But Maya had one final move, a calculated, precise, and unavoidable payback. She had obtained evidence of Bianca's mismanaged finances, the failed brand deals, and the unpaid contractors. She sent a discreet package to the bank holding the lake house mortgage, showing the discrepancies in Bianca and Veronica's management. At the same time, she ensured the legal filings for the failed contracts were properly documented, exposing the duo to maximum accountability. The result was inevitable. Foreclosure proceedings were initiated, and the lake house, the symbol of her family's hierarchy, privilege, and cruelty, was placed on the market. Veronica called frantically, her voice shaking. "Maya, you can't do this! The lake house is a family legacy!" Maya's voice was steady, almost gentle. "Seth doesn't need it. I don't need it, and neither of you deserve it. The lake house was only valuable when I was there to maintain it. Without me, it's just an empty house full of debt." Bianca screamed, desperation and rage twisting her face. "You ruined everything! You owe us!" "I owe you nothing," Maya said firmly. "You owed me respect, acknowledgement, and decency. You didn't give it. I'm only returning the favor." As the foreclosure process continued, Maya focused on what truly mattered: her son, her business, and her peace. Ethan was thriving in ways Maya had only dreamed of before. At the gala, Ethan explained constellations to children with confidence, laughter, and joy. The boy who had once been invisible was now a star in his own right. Maya watched, pride swelling in her chest, knowing that the best revenge had been giving him the life he deserved. Months later, Bianca and Veronica were forced to sell the lake house under financial duress. They had no leverage, no backup, and no ally in the family.
Maya had removed herself from the ecosystem entirely. Their empire, built on borrowed labor and unpaid emotional debt, crumbled exactly as it should. Maya and Ethan, on the other hand, were flourishing. Stellar Events had grown into a renowned event planning firm, with high-profile clients seeking Maya's expertise. Her careful attention to detail, her crisis management skills, and her ability to foresee chaos made her indispensable. She had built not just a business, but a life of autonomy, wealth, and freedom. One evening, under the soft glow of telescopes and string lights at their rooftop observatory, Ethan turned to his mother. "Mom, this is amazing. I'm so happy." Maya held his small hand, looking up at the stars they had always dreamed about together. "Me too, kiddo. We're free now, free to live our lives without anyone else's expectations or cruelty." And in that moment, Maya realized the ultimate truth. The best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about building yourself, reclaiming your worth, and living so fully and joyfully that those who tried to control you are left powerless to touch your happiness. The lake house was gone, Bianca and Veronica were scrambling to survive, and Maya, for the first time in her life, was untouchable. Her life was her own. Her son's joy was her own, and the stars above reminded her that she had finally claimed her place in the universe. The old Maya, the fixer, the invisible daughter, the scapegoat, was gone. In her place stood a mother, an entrepreneur, and a woman who had turned betrayal into triumph. The silence that followed was not lonely. It was victory, pure and unshakable.